How about a Honda tip video on oil drain plug washers? Let's get to it. I see a lot of questions when it comes to these Honda oil drain plug washers, and probably the number one question is, hey, do I have to replace this every time I change my oil? My answer is yes. I recommend every time the oil's changed, replace this washer or gasket as it's also called. They're cheap, they're plentiful, and Honda also recommends you replace it too. Some other questions I see a lot are, what's the part number and what's the size of them? Well, there's the size right there. These are 14 millimeter, and that's measured inside diameter like that. And you can see 14, well, this case it's showing 14.03 millimeters, but that's how you get the size right there. And the part number is 94109-14000. Now this is a pack of 10, and these are Honda original ones. You can get aftermarket ones, and obviously you can get them in different quantities. When we go to install these, we're going to take our washer and we're going to look for the perfectly flat side. Like in this case, this is our perfectly flat side. This side, if we look, a little bit rounded. Now some washers it can be harder than others to tell that, but we're going to look for that perfectly flat side, and that's the side that's going to go against our drain pan. And so in this case, here's our bolt, here's our washer, here's our perfectly flat side. It would be installed in the bolt like that, and then we'll go in our oil pan like this. And that brings us up to our next question: how tight do we make these things? What's the torque spec? Well, it depends on obviously the model and year and all that stuff, but from my experience, what I've seen, Honda basically has two oil pans that they use. One is made of steel, one is made of aluminum. And the steel ones, which is what they always used to use before, those are 33 foot-pounds, and usually you can tell they're made of steel if you don't have a magnet. You just look at the drain plug, and they'll usually be at an angle compared to how the bottom of the pan is sitting. They'll be at a little bit of an angle. The aluminum ones are typically 29 or 30 foot-pounds, and they'll be straight like that when you compare it to the bottom of the oil pan. So basically 29 or 30 foot-pounds for aluminum, 33 for steel, but those specs can always change, so you always want to look up your own model. But those are the ones I've pretty much seen across the board on all the Hondas I work on. Another interesting note, for a very short time many years ago, probably before a lot of you were even working on cars, Honda recommend that you put Hondabond, just a thin coat on each side of the washer when you installed it. And that was because for a short time there was a manufacturing defect with these washers and the hardness was incorrect. Well, it only took a few months. They corrected the hardness on them, and then Honda rescinded the instructions to the tech to put Hondabond on there. So you may hear or have somebody refer to the fact that, hey, Honda recommends putting Hondabond. Well, at one point that was true, but that is no longer true. You do not need to put Hondabond on these washers when you install them. And right now I'll show you a little bit of footage from a recent Honda oil change I did. Now, I wasn't the last one to do the oil change on the Honda that I'm working on, but here's a little bit of advice. If you need tools to remove this gasket for the drain bolt right here for the oil, then you know what, you probably put it on too tight. Now, I was probably venting a little bit when I filmed that, but yes, most likely it was over tightened, but in all honesty it was probably over tightened and used more than once. Here's our washer in question. So this is the one that came off that vehicle that was in that video that I just showed you, and you can see the huge lip right there that was caused by probably over tightening it and using it more than once. These right here, I know that I installed and removed them off the same vehicle, and they were only used once and they were torqued properly, and you can see just a tiny little lip. So this is typically what they will look like when they're removed after they've been installed properly. And then to compare, that's our brand new one. So when we look, there's the difference right there of something that was reused and over torqued most likely, and something that was done properly. I replace them every time. There's a sampling of some of the recent ones. And if you do come across drain pan threads that are damaged because somebody over tightened the bolt, they do make kits to repair those threads so you don't have to replace the entire pan. Well, that's it for this one. If the video helped you out or you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.